Hi, in this video we're going to be looking at how to add workflows, assessments, or notifications to the different steps in your hiring process. Within a hiring process, you'll see as I click on the different steps in the stages here, I have a pop-up that's giving me some options. Any of the steps under In Review, Interview, or Offered can be marked required, meaning that the candidate cannot move forward within the hiring process until they have reached this step. The step cannot be skipped. So I can set that here if I'd like to make this a required step. I also have options here to add workflows to steps. If we have any third-party integrations with assessment vendors that we've set up through our marketplace in SmartRecruiters, you can assign an assessment to a step as well. And you also can send notifications to members of the hiring team once a candidate reaches a certain step. So if I click on workflows, you'll see I'll be brought to the workflow page that has all of the steps in this particular hiring process. And the one different step here that only gives a couple options in the workflow is the new step. So you'll see for this step I already have some workflows configured. One is pipeline cleanup. If I want to add a pipeline cleanup step to my workflow, what this will do is if the candidate has been in the new step for a certain number of days, it's going to create a task which is sending a reminder to the hiring manager or other member of the hiring team to review the candidate and take an action, as they've been sitting in that step for a few days. You can configure how many days you want that to be. And the other thing you can do with a new step workflow is send a message. So here I have the option to send a message to a team member if a candidate hits this step. I can choose who that message goes to. I can also choose a named user of the system if it's somebody other than someone on the hiring team. And then I can choose my template for the message that's going to be sent. These templates are configured in the custom email notifications area under templates in the settings and admin. And there you can configure message templates for messages that are sent to candidates and sent internally. This is an internal message, so it's only going to show me the templates I have set up for internal communications here. So I have the one resume review template I'm going to send. You also have the option to add a filter to this, so maybe send this a few days after they've been in this step, or if it's 0 days, it will be sent immediately once the candidate reaches that step. If I want to send another message to maybe another member of the hiring team, I can add another one here. And if for any reason I need to stop these workflow steps under this step, I can click the Disable Workflow button here. What this will do is will pause this workflow and it won't run, but it will keep all of my steps in place. So in the event that I need to reinstate this workflow or we want to turn it back on, I can just toggle this back on without having to re-add any of the steps that I had prior in my workflow. You'll see as I click on some other steps under In Review or Interview or Offer, I'm going to have some more options here as far as workflow steps are concerned. A couple I'll highlight include the Send Self-Schedule step. So I'm going to drag this here if I wanted to add that to my workflow. If you have a calendar integration with SmartRecruiters, once a candidate reaches this video interview step, I'm going to assign a task to a user, either a member of the hiring team or a named user, to let them know to send that candidate an invite to self-schedule. If you don't have the calendar integration, you also can use the Coordinate Interview step as well. And it's very similar, as this will send a task, again, to a user that I name, telling them it's time to schedule the interview once the candidate has hit this step. If I were in the offer stage, I could have a task sent to one of the hiring team role members to create an offer for this candidate if they hit, say, one of the offer steps here. I can also move a candidate forward based on their star rating. So maybe this step would be used closer to a final interview. And I can say that if this average star rating after the feedback's been gathered is between whatever I say it is, maybe between 2 and 5 or 3 and 5, that I want to automatically move this person to a future step in the hiring process. And then I can choose that here. Also, I can reject a candidate based on their star rating as well. So if their star rating after the interviews have taken place are on the lower side between 1 and 3, I can create a task that will be sent to the hiring team member that I assign to reject this candidate. Again, we have pipeline cleanup like we saw in the new step. We can add that here as well. We can send a reminder to different members of the hiring team to submit their feedback after the interviews have taken place if they have not already. Also, another offer step we can use, if you're using offer approvals, we can send a reminder if certain approvals are still pending. We can let people know that they need to take an action on that. We also can have a candidate interview reminder sent after a certain number of days. So what this will do is that after a candidate has been in whatever step I'm working in this case the video interview step for a certain number of days, I want to create a task to have the member of the hiring team role send a message to this candidate to remind them to schedule their interview if they have not done so. And then finally we have the send message option again. Here it looks a little different than in the new stage because this option actually allows you to send a message to a candidate as well as internally. So if somebody hits the video interview stage and I have a certain email I like being sent out to them, a great example of this is sometimes when a candidate hits the resume review, they come out of new and they go into the resume review step. If you want to send them just a small email saying, we've received your resume and it's currently being reviewed, you can have that set up automatically through this hiring process workflow. So in that case, if I wanted it to be sent to a candidate, I would choose candidate as the recipient. And you'll see this will show me all of the custom email notification templates I've set up that are meant to be sent to candidates. So you'll see, like I mentioned, the under review is here. And then again, you can choose if you want this sent after a certain number of days. So maybe I don't want this to be sent until the candidate has been in the step for a couple days, or I can send it immediately. And then like we saw in the new step, you can also choose to send a message to a hiring team role or a named user. And you'll notice if I choose one of these, it's changed my template options. So now I'm only seeing my internal facing templates here. Once you've created the workflows that you want on the particular steps, you can go back to the hiring process. And you'll know that a step has workflows set up because if there is a blue icon next to workflows rather than a gray one, that means that this step actually has workflows set up for it currently. The same will apply to assessments or notifications. If you set these up for a step, those will also be blue. And quickly, assessments, it's very similar to the inline assessments, where if you have a integration with an assessment partner and you have it set up and turned on through our marketplace, they'll show up here. The difference between this and the inline assessment though is that you are able to add an assessment provider ad hoc. You can come in and choose the one you need. You can save that. And then what you see here will depend on if you already have a standing contract with this third-party assessment vendor or if you need to purchase it. And you'll see that some assessments have the option of auto-triggered. This particular assessment does not allow for that functionality, but if I was able to toggle this on, instead of the member of the hiring team getting a notification to send an assessment manually once the candidates hit that step, if the auto-trigger is a functionality that the assessment allows, you can just have the assessment sent to the candidate directly and automatically once they hit that step, rather than having a member of the hiring team have to manually send that. And then finally, if I go back and I look at notifications, here's just a simple toggle. And I can decide whether I have a notification, which is a simple notification email, sent to the hiring manager when a candidate reaches this step. So I'll say yes. And now once I come back, you'll see I have a notification set up. This is now blue. Thank you for watching this video on creating workflows, assessments, and notifications for hiring process steps in SmartRecruiters.